Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Indian Community Podcast. I'm your host Amit Gupta and I'm thrilled to welcome Vrishin Subramaniam. He's the visionary young founder and lead planner at CapitalWe. Vrishin's brand promise is he makes immigrants millionaires. Vrishin's journey to financial enlightenment began at the tender age of 17 when he moved to the US. Confronted with the daunting task of understanding money, equity, compensation, the UX tax code, and the pillars of wealth building, he learned through first-hand experience the gaps in financial knowledge many immigrants face, including me. His mission with CapitalWe is to bridge this gap, making financial wisdom accessible and actionable for all. His story is not just inspiring, it's also a roadmap for anyone looking to secure their financial future in a new country. So let's dive in and learn more about Vrishin and how he makes immigrants millionaires. Vrishin, welcome to the Indian Community Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Amit.
Great. Vrishin, let's start from the beginning. So you were born and raised in New Delhi, in India, and then you came to the US when you were just 17 to attend college at the University of Illinois. So how was your experience in the US? Did you face any peculiar challenges as a young student?
Everything, right? Not just, the standard challenges that you have when you move away from or to like a new college setting where you're figuring out new academics, a new system, making new friends, trying to learn how to cook food, but also, the cultural aspect. So like being in a different country, being away from home, not knowing anybody, dealing with like harsh winters, being in the middle of cornfields in Illinois.
Right.
So the entire gamut all at once.
Yeah, I remember when I was a young student and studying in London, I did not know how to cook. And by the time I went back to India, I could pretty much make everything, right? So my mother was surprised when she saw that this boy who couldn't boil water is now full-fledged chef certified. I could cook up a meal for myself. So that is definitely one of the most challenging aspects, especially if you've never cooked back home. That I can relate with that. So, Vrishin, after your stint at the university, I noticed that you got into product management. And then I suddenly see that you become an entrepreneur. So what was that all about? What triggered that a tremendous shift, and that too at such a young age?
A lot of things, looking back in hindsight, I think it's easy to kind of thread the narrative together. But, each piece kind of fell in place as life happened. I think I've always been curious about starting business, or I thought I would do it at some point. I definitely had several conversations with other people about starting something, whether that's like a restaurant or like something else. But I've always been scared of rejection and never kind of taken the leap ever. That being said, what happened was, I graduated, didn't have a job. So I ended up taking the first job I had. It was actually software consulting. And then over there, I kind of stayed, learned for 6 months, quickly learned software is not for me. They had an opportunity to pivot into product. So I was doing that for a bit. Really enjoyed it. Probably was not getting paid enough, in my opinion. So my mind got thinking, like first job in the Bay Area is not like you feel like you're not getting paid enough, especially see your peers go to Googles and Apples and are earning $200,000, $300,000 right out of college. So had to get good with money really quick. And then, in addition to learning about the account types that they have over here, you have the question of like, am I going to get my H1B? And, a lot of your decisions hinge on that. And, as you know, once you get the H1, it's not the end of the road. There is the green card process and all of that. So, had questions around 401ks, IRAs, all of that stuff. And looking at it from an immigrant lens, I didn't really find a lot of answers. This was back in 2018. So I was like, maybe there does exist a market or something like this. And so I took the qualifying exams, and then I kind of just sat on it. And then when COVID happened, I had a little bit of time because I was not kind of commuting for work. And I said, let's start this on the side. We'll see how it goes. And here we are 4 years later.
So CapitalWe is a COVID baby, if I may call it, in that sense.
Something like that. Yes.
Okay,
It's a product of way too much free time on my hands, I think.
Which is great. I think that's how, long-term sustainable businesses are built. You build it with, there's a pressing need, and then there's some passion involved. But that's what intrigues me a little bit, which is your education was in engineering, if I'm correct, right? And then financial planning is a completely different world altogether, So how did you decide, or what led you to think that, okay, I can be a financial planner? So what was that eureka moment, or, when did that light bulb go off when you thought, okay, you know what, engineering and product, and let's see you later. Right now, I think I can be a financial planner and I can help people become millionaires, like you say. So what was that moment, or what made you confident that, yes, you can do this?
That's the funny part. I'm still waiting for that moment to hit.
Okay.
A lot of being an entrepreneur is not kind of knowing 100% before you step into the ring, right? A lot of it is figuring it out, knowing that you have confidence in your ability to figure things out as you go. So that is really all that I was backing on. Financially, I felt like, the first 10 years I had saved enough money that even if I went 3 to 5 years without making anything, I would not be behind the curve. And then from a skill standpoint, it's an industry that has been around forever. It's not something that is like ChatGPT, which came about and is possibly more revolutionary. But the financial planning industry has been around for 400 plus years. So really, it's there are people who have existed despite the fact that robo-advisors have come, despite the fact that, high-tech, low-touch tech like fintech services exist. There is something to be said of another human on the other end who's able to comfort you and provide you the mental peace that you need, knowing that your money is safe and is doing the work that you need. So established industry, had the financial backing, and just wanted to fulfill the entrepreneurial itch. And early on, I had conversation with several other planners, and somebody actually told me, he told me this. He was like, you're an outsider to the industry, which means inherently you're going to do things slightly differently, and you would think about problems slightly differently. And that's an advantage because you're not entrenched in the system and you're not able to see the flaws because you're somebody who's an outsider. And at the end of the day, people don't care. They don't care about like the advice you give. They only want to know what they need to do, right? So I think I have the ability to figure that out. And so let's take the leap.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned robo-advisors this evening. I was with a friend, and I'll mention him so that he has a reason to watch this. His name is Manoj. And we were talking exactly about this concept of robo-advisors, helping people find out where they should be investing and what their portfolio should look like. So it is ironic that, and you also mentioned it's at least a 400-year-old industry or a profession. So Vrishin, what is that gap that you think you're going to be solving? And especially you have this whole immigrant tadka in your marketing mix, if I may say. Right.
In my marketing not.
What is correct, or that khichdi that we are all cooking, right? So what is that gap that you see, and why are you focusing on immigrants? And why do you think it is important for immigrants to be talking to Vrishin?
Firstly, I think the point you make of immigrants not having money is completely wrong. I think as Indians, we are one of the highest earning demographics in the US, right?
I said not enough money. Not enough.
That's a subjective term, right? That's a subject. What I believe financial planning is not the pursuit of maximizing your wealth, but it is about optimizing your life. And that's something that we as Indians don't understand at. It's the fact that, they think an advisor is only somebody who's managing investments and charging a percentage of that. If you want that, you go to a hedge fund. Like regardless, you're just going to be like throwing money away. really the core of financial planning is to look at, all aspects of your life that money touches and figuring out, is your upside aligned with where you want to be? Is your downside aligned with where you want to be? Is your risk aligned with where you want to be? Are you saving to the right objectives that you want to have? Are you living the life that you want to live right now? Right. Too many people either save their, job they hate too much. They save too much. They don't enjoy the present. They're always worried about what happened. As far as I know, speaking about making immigrant millionaires, there's nobody I know who says, I want to become like Ambani. Everybody you talk to only says, I want to make sure my kids are taken care of. I want to make sure my family is happy. And I want to make sure that I never have to worry about it. So the financial planning really is what is your ideal life? If you never had to worry about money, what would you do? Where would you live? Who would you be? What would you do? And then working backwards into okay, to live that version of your life, how much money do you need? Or are you aligning your money with who you want to become as a person? And that's really what it is about.
Nice. Vrishin, I noticed you also talk on the concept of enough and how much is enough and especially when it comes to financial planning, right? Because when we think of it, and like you said, nobody's saying that I want to be the Ambanis, right? And throw a big fat wedding or a pre-wedding, if I may say. So right now, India is buzzing with the pre-wedding celebrations in Gujarat. But we all want to get to a certain point, but a lot of us struggle with figuring out how much is enough or how much is that threshold that we should be aiming for. So how do you typically calculate that or help your customers get to that enough?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's looking at, what you have today and then figuring out whether it's invested sensibly. I know as Indians, we have quite a bit of narrative around stock markets being risky. And so there is a tendency to favor real estate. And so really looking at, are we optimizing for monthly cash flow or are we optimizing for lifetime growth of asset? But, having said, where you're starting, what you're expecting to earn, one of the big things is, if you wanted to stop working, when would that be? Was that be as soon as possible? Or would that be kind of, you love what you do and you're tap dancing to work, so you will work till your age. That I think plays a big role in defining what enough is. And really looking at the simple math of it is, 25 to, in the US, if you plan to retire in the US, is about 25 to 35 times your expenses is enough to kind of create a forever portfolio, which is to say a 3 to 4%. If you withdraw 3 to 4% of your core portfolio, you should have enough money to live off of indefinitely. But again, it's important to kind of figure out what you'll do once you retire, because one of the big things I get is I want to do whatever I want, so that I never want to worry about money, so that I can do whatever I want. But that whatever you want piece, a lot of people don't figure out. And they'll soon find that they retire and 6 months in, they're bored because they played golf or they've traveled or done vacations for 6 months straight and now they don't know what to do. So they end up going back to work or do. So finding something to retire to is the other big kind of piece of that. The math on it is not complicated, right? It's really more as I said, the psychology piece that us as Indians, and I think more so as people, are missing.
So when you say 25 times of what you need, so what does that really mean? So if we were to look at it, statistically, let's say somebody needs $10,000 a month because of all the expenses that they have. They have a mortgage, they have kids going to university, and let's say they're spending a little lavishly, right? So let's say their expense is $10,000 a month. And I'm assuming if you were not to work, then you would need some sort of insurance, like a medical insurance. And so that's also going to build up. So if somebody needs $10,000 a month, what is that they need to save up? Is that 25 times of 10,000 or is that another number altogether?
It's going to be $120,000 for your annual spend. And so it's going to be 25 times
The 120,
which is about
Okay.
$4.85 million.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's about $5 million is what somebody needs
To
retire.
withdraw $120,000 each year in
Each year.
perpetuity, inflation adjusted, without having to worry about it.
That's cool.
But, you might find that, a couple of your expenses drop off. You're not commuting as much. You don't spend as much on gas. And some other areas go up. You're taking better care of your health. So you're paying more for a gym. So it's something that I think you kind of need to ease it to.
Right. So what Vrishin is saying is, if you have $5 million in the bank, you can very well retire today and spend time on your, favorite activities. And then, of course, be working for the community, do things that you love. But of course, as long as you stay within that $10,000 a month,
Yeah.
Sort of an expense.
A quick note there. It's not if it's $5 million cash in the bank, because it's going to lose value over time. So it needs to be invested. It's a $5 million portfolio.
Of course. Right. So you're going to start with 5 and then speak with Vrishin. Yeah. Speak to Vrishin. He'll tell you where that needs to be parked so that it is sustainable and keeps you alive for the next 25 years. And it might still grow further, right? So I'm sure Vrishin is going to invest that in areas which is going to make that 5 million even grow further on. Yeah. So Vrishin, really good points over there. And I think that's also practical to look at, right? In terms of, okay, so if this is what you need, then this is what you need to, if this is what you need to spend, then this is what you need to save. Yep. Now, a lot of times when people think about financial planning, they think of their CPA, right? Or in India, we used to call them the chartered accountant. Now, in this country, they're the CPAs. I had read one of your LinkedIn comments wherein you mentioned that a CPA is looking at your money in the rear view mirror, whereas the financial planner is looking forward through the windshield. Can you elaborate on that? Because where we come from, or, we grew up watching our parents speak to the chartered accountants for such advice. And here we are talking about financial planners doing something tremendously different. So what do you mean by this rear view mirror and this forward looking?
Absolutely. Happy to explain it. Yeah, I totally stole this analogy from somebody, but it just makes so much sense that I think it's easy for people to grasp. Basically, the idea is, you're talking to your CPA about the previous year when you're engaging with them. So everything that has already happened, you're giving them a record. That kind of does not help you in the sense like, yeah, sure, your CPA can help maximize your returns. But what happens is that what they may be doing is not probably what is best for you to pay the lowest lifetime taxes in your life. That is to say, today you may have a smaller bill, but 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when you're trying to pull from retirement accounts, you may end up paying more or the same, which ends up canceling itself. It's like paying 30% on the seed or paying, 30% of the harvest kind of situation. So point being that CPA cannot change anything because in the past, they can only optimize for whatever decisions you have. Whereas a financial planner is looking at your finances through the windshield of your car because it's a forward-looking view. We want to see what obstacles or what opportunities are there lying ahead of you and proactively help you navigate the car so as to either avoid bad decisions or to ensure that we're able to make some more good decisions. So that's the way I kind of explain how a financial planner is done.
I would say thank you for that, because it has got me thinking on 30% on the seed or 30% on the yield. And I can see what you mean over there, right? And especially if these are poor decisions in the interest of saving some small change today, then that can come back and haunt you in the future. So, which is very interesting. I mean, I never really thought about it in that sense. So I think this is a good takeaway for me personally too. Nice. That's interesting. So Vrishin, when you said to your early customers that, hey, I'm going to help you become millionaires, what was that early feedback or reaction that you got from them? Did you see people being surprised, amused, curious? How would you define or describe those reactions?
That's a good question. As I kind of think through it, the first couple of clients were obviously friends and family. I did not make them any such promise, but
Okay.
one of the things was, if we do these things, I'm sure you're like on track to have your finances in great order. And it's only a matter of time before you reach millionaire like status. But again, that is completely up to you if that's what you want. But working with those early clients really helped me understand, what it is that people are looking for. And as I said, not everybody's looking to become a millionaire. They want to make sure that families taken care of, kids education is paid for, and they have enough to never worry about. So kind of, I would say I learned a lot more that process early on than kind of talking about being a millionaire. Obviously, it's a draw for a lot of people. It's an aspirational kind of status. And I think it appeals to a lot of the people who are younger than us, right? One of my big wants for starting this business was to provide affordable financial advice to people who may otherwise be left out by the traditional model of, having enough assets and being like working with a wealth manager who typically work with like older people, retirees, things. So when I was looking as a 24-year-old, I didn't find anybody who would be able to like charge me for unbiased financial advice. As an immigrant, nobody existed at that. And in some ways, I'm looking to kind of fill that space and be open to providing advice to people if you're 20 or if you're 40 or 50.
That is cool. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you from my personal experience, when I came to this country 4 years ago, I did not understand. I still don't understand the financial system over here. But when I came here, and then of course the pandemic, struck. So if you were going to the office, things would have probably been different. I could have consulted people, but the pandemic struck. And I remember filing my first year, the returns that I was filing, I just didn't know what I'm doing. And even the second year, I did not know what I'm doing. And I did not capitalize on the opportunity to invest in a 401k. Eventually I realized, okay, there's something called as 401k. I was getting those emails. I was trying to read it up, but the language was not as simple as you would want it to be. So that was a lesson that I learned, the hard way. And do you do programs for new immigrants who come to the country and just don't know where to start? And especially if you look at somebody in my age bracket, right? When you come to this country, you don't have enough savings to be able to retire. So first is, do you do offer programs for younger immigrants who have not saved enough and who are just starting off on their journey? And then if yes, how do you really help them? How does one work with you? And what kind of results do you think people typically get?
Yeah. I have found that, I end up being able to help people best only if they're ready to accept it. So early on, one of the takeaways was, I want to help anybody who is new college grad and like looking for like needs guidance. I know each and every person who's 20 can benefit from the fact that if I just tell them the key to success, they will take it and they will all become millionaires. Life doesn't work that way. It's very much like eating healthy and going to the gym, right? Like you can give everybody the keys to success, but unless like they're willing and ready to take action, they're not going to. So I do offer consults. So I do hourly work because I don't want the scope to become very overwhelming, but I do hourly work and that can fit you whether you're a new immigrant, new college grad, or new immigrant, say in your age bracket. Yeah, really the outcome that people are looking for will determine how it makes sense to work. As I said, I found people that are so engrossed with worrying about, the F1 to OPT to STEM to H1B transition that they don't really think about their finances in the first 3 years. And that's okay. I've understood that, you can't help everybody. You can only help people that come to you, are ready and willing and able. But yeah, I mean, people like you, I would say, are the minority in that you made such a big move at the age of 40, 40s. I don't want to assume correctly.
Yes, plus or
Late
minus,
30s.
plus
Late
or
30s.
minus, right?
But yeah, like there's not very many people who are willing, like once you put down roots, had a family, to like,
Correct.
move to a completely different country. So definitely in the minority, but again, like people that I want to help, right? The main reason being, our money scripts are generated by where we live, where we grow up, right? In India, what have they told you, taking a loan is bad. You should never owe people money. Stock market is risky. We all know somebody who's like lost money. And then kind of inflation is not a concept that they teach you about at all, even though India has like much higher inflation. But come here. It's quite the opposite, right? Inflation is low. Debt is what runs the country, and stock markets have the best track record because it's been around for 100 plus years. So
Correct.
how do you kind of reconcile your ideologies with what the ground reality is? And that's kind of the adjustment that you as an need, kind of what I went through firsthand.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, to add to the list of complaints of us growing up, a credit card nail in, you don't take credit cards, they're bad for you. Yeah, I mean, if you're irresponsible with credit cards, they're definitely going to hurt you a lot. But I do see value in using credit, appropriately. There is this immense value if you use it properly. Again, I think when I was in India, credit systems or credit bureaus were establishing, or let's say maturing. They've been around for some time, but I think they were getting much more mature. Companies like Experian had, set up operations there. And then when you come outside and you realize everything works on credit. So having a good credit history is critical. Even to buy a car, you need some credit forget buying a car. Even to rent a house these days, they will ask you for your credit history. So understanding finance and investment and your money is definitely a subject that we are all not programmed to be aware of, right? So that's definitely an important topic. So I congratulate you, Vrishin, for taking that bold move and helping young immigrants become millionaires, if we may say that again. Great. So Vrishin, you've spent a lot of time outside of India, but you work with a lot of Indian immigrants and help them with their investment strategies. Does investment in India also feature in your strategies? Do you recommend NRIs to be investing in India? If yes, then what kind of investment mediums do you typically suggest?
It's a very hard question. Still kind of working through this with a lot of clients. Everybody who is an NRI is so gung-ho about the future of India. I mean, you can see it anytime you go back, right? Mm-hmm. Where technology is leaps and bounds ahead of where the US is. UPI, having...
We should not tell anybody, right, that India is much more ahead of US in these things.
It's, there's like a regular stand-up bit about how, you can get one guy to deliver like one gulab jamun for you at like 4 a.m. So the convenience there is par. Obviously, because you see the amount of development, you're keen to think that the stock market is going to do really well. Historic studies have actually shown that the stock market returns and the economic development of a country are actually decoupled. They don't rely on one another. There's actually no empirical data to suggest that a country that's doing well economically will have a good stock market.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So knowing this and knowing the amount of loopholes that you as an NRI have to jump through, whether that's passive foreign investment companies or, repatriation, if you go back, like just navigating 2 different tax codes can be very daunting. So really the question is, are you trying to optimize for returns? If so, have you adjusted for currency depreciation and just administrative hassle? And if not, then, why are you investing in it? Right. So given the ROH, return on hassle, ROT, return on time, ROI, return on investment.
Mhm.
Does this make sense for you? And, because there are multiple ways to do this, as you said, you do mutual funds in India. You can do property in India. You can do land in India.
Right.
You have different challenges with each different investment. Managing, monitoring, administering, fixing, tax filing. So, so really, I get people to think long and hard about this. Given this particular piece of data that, stock market and return, like economy are decoupled, and then figure out whether it makes sense. I personally, I do invest in India, but the way I do it is I invest a US based ETF because I have just found from a ROH and RO perspective, that is just the simplest. I don't get as much returns as what I probably would have otherwise, but it keeps things clean.
That is interesting. Yeah, a lot of us are more familiar with those investment channels, right? So familiarity also kind of makes you lazy and you think, okay, let me just do that or continue to do that, right? So that happens. I'm also seeing a lot of immigrant investors becoming angel investors, or let's say small time VCs in India. Are you seeing that trend? Are your customers asking you, are there any companies that we can invest in? Do you see that trend also?
I have not had any clients that, come to me with that yet. I did have somebody I spoke to recently that was like, oh, I'm going to do like a real estate syndicate in India, right?
Mhm.
Where, we'll pool a bunch of money and then we'll buy something. And then that
Correct.
investment is kind of locked in for 8 to 10. I was like, okay, well, like the rest of your portfolio needs help because you don't have like a base of investments before you're jumping to grade 10 level without like grade 1 and 2. So one of the things is make sure you build your basic foundational portfolio, which is the basic ETFs and the basic kind of risk exposure before you start doing advanced things just to chase a return. Goes back to why are you investing? How much money are you looking to create? And if you don't have to take unnecessary risks, and when do you need the money? So if you don't need to create unnecessary risks in order to get to the number that you need to get to, then it makes sense to do something where, it's opaque. You don't get to pull your money out whenever you want, illiquid, and you basically just don't know when that money will come back or whether it will come back. So those are considerations that I get people to think long and hard about. It's very easy to chase the shiny new object, right? We've all seen that. So that's human nature. But, and that's where kind of having a financial planner comes in, who's keeping you honest, making you stick to the path and really questioning your biases. That's not to say I don't come with my own biases. I absolutely, but it's to kind of bring that impartial view to your situation.
Yeah, that is very interesting, Vrishin, because we find ourselves in that zone many a times throughout the year in terms of, okay, you've got some spare change and you've got to invest somewhere. You come up with all these different ideas. And like I said, you're familiar with those mediums. So you tend to think of going back and, trying those routes again. So that is good to know. And I think recently I also read an article where you are suggesting the entrepreneur route for, becoming visa holder in this country, right? So I think it's called the EB-5, where you could become an investor and then establish a business in the US and also get a visa to come in and live the American dream and establish something that you've always dreamt of. Now, whenever I've spoken to anybody about the EB-5, people have told me, oh, it's too difficult and very complex and it needs a lot of money. I'm sure some of it is true, but what do you think is a typical success rate? Or what are the things that somebody should really have in place to be able to be successful in that space? right? Is an EB5 another shiny object that people chase after, or do you see success, especially for an investor in India? Is EB5 a myth or a fact?
So I don't think I recommended it per se, but definitely I think it's something that people should look at, right? So you know how the backlog for Indians is, right? It's
Correct.
99 plus year waiting period on an H1B. A lot of
Correct.
people have, their priority dates set and they're just waiting, and that can look like a wait of up to 20 years. I'm sure everybody at some point wants to tap out and figure out if it makes sense to just like go back and have whether they have enough. But really, think about if you lose your job, you have 60 days to leave the country. I don't know
Correct.
how people ever feel settled in the
Mhm.
US, given that at a moment's notice, you can kind of be chucked out of the country and you're
Correct.
forced to sell or liquidate everything.
Correct.
So when I kind of have these conversations with people about like, what is your most important, most burning emergency? A lot of people talk to me about, I don't ever want to go. Like, what is it can we do? And so that kind of got me down, like reading, or led me down the path of the EB5. There is definitely an industry around it, right? Where with all good and bad things, there are people trying to achieve it for aspirational status. And there are a lot of people that are ready to take advantage. So I had a chat with Ishan, who runs the nonprofit that is lobbying for EB5, who does like lobby work for EB5 for Asian investors, such as like Indians. Yeah, we got talking, and really, you do need a lot of money. The simple fact is you need to be able to have like $1 million. Not simple, right? But there are definitely Indians who have that kind of money. And so the question is, if this is a priority, are you willing to kind of put that money towards this, have it be locked up in an investment that's potentially not generating any returns, and take the chance just to be able to stay there? And the answer from the market seems to be yes. Like there's definitely quite a few people that have pursued this path, to the point now where there seems to be a backlog for the EV5 as well. But definitely it's something that I believe works, if that is something you will pursue. Again, I'm not endorsing or not saying you should go for the EV5, but I'm saying think long and hard about where your priorities are, immigration or financial, and then figure out if this makes sense, like backing into this, whether this makes sense for you, either as an investment or as a life choice.
That is good. I just wanted to ask you this because you would have seen a lot of people go through this grind, and some meet success and some don't, right? A lot of people who are not, or who are thinking about it, want to know whether this is something that does materialize or not, right? Because while when you speak to any of the players of that industry, like you said, everything is all hunky-dory, everything's going to happen and there's no problems at all. But there are things that happen behind the scenes that people may not be aware of, right? So, which is good. Great. I had one formal question and then we'll move on to some fun questions. Question for an Indian immigrant who is investing in this country or who wants to invest in this country. What are the 3 must-haves that you would recommend, right? So this is what you would say. You have to do these 3 things. And then there are, of course, there are other things that people will need to do. But if you're not doing these 3, then you're pretty much leaving money on the table. So what would those 3 be?
I would probably give you 6, 5 or 6, right?
Nice.
So first and foremost, figure out what your goals are. Ultimately, not knowing what we're saving for, how we're doing it, is one of the big things I see across all immigrants that come. Yeah. We're told to work hard. We're told to put our best foot forward and you'll get recognized. That's not the case. So really kind of don't climb that ladder of success only to find that it's leaning against the wrong wall. So set your goals, figure out what you're saving for, what your priority. 2, make sure you invest. Start early and invest often. There's no secret in investment. If it's promising you a certain return, most likely it's like not going to last. And there really is no secret magic. There is just time timely index funds day in, day out, and just kind of stay the course for 5, 10, 15 years. It's a slow grind, but it will take. Third, downside protection. Make sure that you have insurance coverage, whether that's life insurance, homeowners, car, auto. Make sure you have enough. Right? The whole point of insurance is not to invest. Again, separate investments from insurance. Insurance is only downside protection. So you need like term life insurances, homeowners, auto, and just get term life. Don't do anything like whole life or other stuff because it will save you taxes. It is merely meant to protect your downside in case something happens to your earning potential. Last one, draft some kind of estate plan, a will, a trust, qualified domestic trust, something of that sort. Because I spoke to somebody couple who are married, husband and wife. Husband was not able to sign off on any of the medical things needed for the wife because they didn't have any kind of paperwork stating that they were married. They got married in India and they didn't have anything that authorized him to make decisions on her behalf. So very heartbreaking, knowing your partner's right there and you can't do anything about it. So have a will, have a trust, have something that outlines that, like guardianship for your children, have something that outlines what happens to you, who makes decisions in case, power of attorneys, right? Who makes decisions in case you're incapacitated, who has access to all your stuff in case you're incapacitated, because life not only happens like before, like it's not just the death component, it's also everything before that.
Right.
And then lastly, just live in the present. That is something that I think more of us can. There's a lot of news. It's easy to kind of get sucked up in the news cycle. It's easy to see what other people are doing, especially if you live in the Bay Area. There's always somebody who's driving something fancier, has a bigger car, has a private plane. So it's easy to kind of get into that. So just kind of live in your now, and that will make you be a lot happier.
That is beautiful. I think your point number 4 is the one that is also something that a lot of people keep on their backlog or a to-do that, okay, I'll get to it, I'll get it done. And then they just don't get to it.
Yep.
So that's definitely, is that something that you offer as a service, or do you recommend that they reach out to an attorney?
Yeah, I work with attorneys, or I work with like online will prep software, but really the thing is I will push you to get it done, right? I've spoken to people who would come to me and they're like, yeah, estate planning, right? I have been wanting to do that for like a whole year. I did it, like I said, I'll do it last year. And then before I realized it was Feb of 24. And then they didn't sign on. So it's like, clearly it was not a big enough priority for you to like do. But like, if you do want help in getting that stuff done, that's where a planner comes in. Like it's the accountability piece. It's making sure I'm behind you so that you get stuff done. And then really just kind of helping you organize and curate your life. I think will is a very important part of that. So I definitely work with people who will help you get it.
That is cool. Thank you so much, Vrishin. I'll move on to some quick rapid fire fun questions. Not too many, but just a few. So what's your favorite amongst these two, chole kulche or tacos?
Depends on where the tacos are. No, I'm kidding. Chole bhature anytime.
Chole
But
bhature.
in moderation.
In moderation. I don't know. I mean, if I see them, I forget moderation at that time, right? So especially if you're in Delhi or, in Karol Bagh, where I come from, the old West Delhi, chole bhature there's no moderation once you're there.
Yeah, it's some recommendations. My wife, not taken my wife like eating in Delhi yet.
Okay.
So it's on the list.
Great. If you're ever in Atlanta, there is this place called Nathu Sweets, which is actually a restaurant in Delhi.
Right?
Yeah. So they opened up in Atlanta. So, you should let me know when you're here and then I'll take you guys around. And they've got some really awesome chole bhature. So I can tell you. So we drove up 40 minutes just to have that. We did that twice in a month.
That's how you know it's good.
I know it's good. That's why we went the second time around. So it is that good.
Awesome.
Perfect.
You should get them to sponsor this podcast.
So I am talking to them to come and talk about, what they did, or why did they come to Atlanta? I mean, I'm thankful they did, but I'm curious too. So hopefully we'll connect and we'll get them
I will
appeared on
listen
the
to
show as well. That's cool. Vrishin, I noticed you have dancing as it's one of your achievements on your profile. So what was that dance form that you won a prize for?
No, I didn't win any prize. I just put that there to see if people are reading it. But I'm very much like an enthusiastic wedding dancer. So
Okay.
love to be the Bharati at any weddings. So my wife and I are trying to compete to become, the most professional wedding attenders.
That's nice. That's nice. Can we see Vrishin doing the Nagin dance at weddings? Is that what you do?
that one is sent to private status on Facebook.
So I remember in New Delhi, especially in the north, I've not attended a lot of weddings outside of Delhi, but in Delhi, in the Bharat, you have to have the Nagin dance. There will be a Nag and there will be somebody with, those makeshift beans, and there will be a Nagin dance for sure.
It definitely feels like a 2 a.m. thing. Or 4 a.m., I guess.
Correct. That's nice. Most memorable place you have gone for scuba diving?
Ooh, that one is hard. I want to say the first place where I really got my feet wet was the Maldives. So I got very lucky. I got to go. I got to have my introductory scuba course in Maldives. And this was, 10, 15 years ago. So really before the corals started dying, 100 feet visibility, you swim around the island. It was just like the entire wall of the island was just covered in like marine life. And it was one of the most like fantastic things that I have seen. Close second would be Diani Beach in Kenya, Seychelles. And third place would be Fort Lauderdale in the USA.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And was the water warm in Kenya, or is it cold water, or is it warm?
Yeah, no, it's all equatorial. It's all very warm.
Very warm.
So like great conditions. Because the other thing is like I've done diving in California as well. California has a lot more cold water.
Correct.
So by default, what happens is in cold water, the marine life tends to not be as common.
Correct.
So it's a little more boring, different experience. But yeah, like Fort Lauderdale and Seychelles and Diani are like,
And was there enough light for you to be able to appreciate the beauty, or do you have to wear lights on your gear?
No, it's about 30 meters down or 30 feet down. So there's a decent amount of light if you go on a cloudy day.
Okay.
To like see the bigger challenge is visibility is like when silt gets kicked up. Correct. Which is a huge challenge in California, in Monterey Bay. But Fort Lauderdale, for example, you're literally in the jet stream cut stream current. So it's just clear the entire. So you just kind of get into the stream and then you don't even have to swim. The stream just takes you. And so you're just hovering over reefs and then you just exit once you're out of oxygen.
That's cool. That's cool. Nice. One last question. What is that one fact that most people don't know about you?
Oh, I wish I could have prepared for that one.
Don't say anything you're going to be sorry about later.
No, I really enjoy learning languages. So for me, I think that is something that I'm always looking to like learn from. Which is like, I always like to connect, language is obviously like a means to connect with people. Working with, again, in diaspora, everybody speaks a different language. So I have this inherent fascination with trying to learn a smattering of Kannada. I know like smattering of Kannada, smattering of Telugu, smattering of Marathi, a little bit of Bengali, just to, make people feel more at ease. But also, it's very fascinating to me how languages work and they're so similar yet so different. That probably be the fact. Okay.
I think you managed to get out of that question without any controversy. So that's
is this going to be recorded?
Too late. We are already 56 minutes into this recording. Vrishin, thank you so much. I had a really wonderful conversation with you. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody who's listening and watching this is also learning so much about you and the warmth, the personality that you have. It is, I would say, it is enigmatic in one way because there's so much that you've been able to achieve in such little time. And I would congratulate you and wish you all the best for all the immigrant millionaires that you're going to be helping out in the next few years. So I'm going to watch out, and hopefully we'll connect again, once again, to talk about it. And maybe we'll also bring one of your customers in and talk about their experience. And, when they become millionaires or multi-millionaires, if I may say. Right. So that is great. Vrishin, thank you so much for appearing on the Indian Community Podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure chatting. I love what you're doing on the podcast. So please.
Thank you, Vrishin. And lastly, I just want to make sure if you're watching this or if you're still on this video, please don't hold or wait for your trust and establishing that, trust for your family. Go ahead, call up your attorney today and get that settled, because I know a lot of people who've kept it in their backlog forever and ever, and you just don't know when you need it. So that's something that you should do first thing. And then, of course, go check up Vrishin. I'm going to put all his links in this description of the video, his LinkedIn, and the link to his website, CapitalWe. So do reach out to him and set up time. So, yes.
If folks are curious, I do like an Ask Me Anything on Friday on LinkedIn. So
yes,
you can come drop your questions in there and I'm happy to answer them.
Correct. Yes. And we can, maybe next Friday when we all meet him on LinkedIn, we'll ask him more fun questions. We are going to get blocked by Vrishin, I guess. Anyway. All right. Thank you once again. Thanks, Vrishin.
Thank you.